Salvete omnes. This is chapter 38, exercise A. So the instructions say that we are to identify the underlined Latin infinitives, the use of the infinitive, that is subjective, objective, complementary, and then we're to translate the Latin sentence into English. So number one, sententia prima. Non poterant trahere carrum. Non poterant. So the infinitive use of trahere. Well, it's working with this form of possum, because possum, posse, potui, to be able to, screams out for a complementary infinitive to complement or complete its meaning. So they were not able, this is the imperfect tense, to trahere carrum, to draw or drag the carrum, the cart. They were not able. They used to not be able to drag the cart. Sententia secunda. Debes claudere januam. So debes, debeo debere, when followed by infinitive, it uses a complementary infinitive. An infinitive complements or complete its meaning. So debe, second person singular of debeo debere, debui debitus. You ought, you owe. So you ought to claudere, to close the janua I feminine, the door. You ought to shut the door. Complementary infinitive. Tertia, sententia tertia. Cupisne ludere? Cupisne. The ne, we're asking a question, it's an interrogative, expecting a yes or a no answer. And it's cupio, cupere, cupivi, cupitus, which means to wish, to want, to desire. Like Cupid. So cupis is the second person singular. Do you want, do you wish to ludere, ludo, ludere, to play? Do you want to play? So this is a complementary infinitive. It complements or completes the meaning of cupio. Do you want to do something? To verb. Quarta, sententia quarta. Constituerunt donum recipere. Constituerunt, when we have constituo, they decided to do something. This takes a complementary infinitive. Constituo plus infinitive, that's a complementary infinitive, to complement or complete the meaning of decide to do something. They decided to recipio, to take back, to receive, to accept the donum, the gift. This is a third person plural perfect active indicative. They decided to receive the gift, or they decided to take back the gift. And quinta, sententia quinta. Poterant removeri. So poterant, like in sententia prima, they were able. Possum screams out for a complementary infinitive to complement or complete its meaning. They were able to removere, to be moved back. Notice it's not the present active, removere, with an E at the end, letter E. But the letter I pronounced E, removeri, to be moved back. It's the passive. They could be moved back, could be another translation. Sexta, sententia sexta. Pueros currere eubebit. So if we got eubeo, that almost always takes an objective infinitive. If we have a subject accusative and then the verb of eubeo is active, and it is, third person singular future active indicative. They will eubeo, eubere, iussi, iussus, bid, order, command. And by bid, I mean to order someone. So he will order the subject accusative pueros, accusative of puer, pueri masculine. It's the subject accusative because it's accusative. It's like it's the direct object of eubebit, but it is also, more importantly, acting as the subject of the infinitive, currere. Nominatives are not the subject of infinitives. Nominatives are the subjects of finite verbs, verbs which have a finite ending. like eubebit has an ending, a finis, it's finite. Whereas in infinitive, you don't know who's doing the action. It is infinite. It doesn't have an ending, a personal ending to tell you who. Anyone could be doing the infinitive. We know eubebit, it has to be he, she, or it. Curere, anyone could be. So its subject will not be in the nominative, but in the accusative. That becomes very important in the next chapter. So he will order the boys to run. This is an objective infinitive, where this infinitive is the object, like it's the direct object of the verb order. He will order the boys running. Septima, sententia septima. Milites ambulare coacti sunt. Now, milites, the soldiers, ambulare, to walk, coacti sunt, cogo, cogere, coegi, coactus, has two distinct meanings because it's cum ago. So cum together, so to come together, to cum ago, drive together, it means to gather or collect. But cum can also be an intensifier. So it's to do or drive forcibly, to act forcibly, or to compel, to force someone. So you have to decide through context which one you're working with. Note it's also passive, third plural passive, so it happened to the soldiers. The soldiers were gathered to do this. Okay, how about the soldiers were forced? It happened to the subject because it's passive voice. The soldiers have been. They were forced to ambulare. When a verb like eubeo and cogo, to force someone to do something, to order someone to do something, that usually takes a subject accusative and an objective infinitive. So if you use cogo up here in sentence sexta, he will force or order, coget, the boys to correre, run. It would take the same construction. But in the passive, it will take a complementary infinitive because we lack the subject accusative. There is no subject accusative here in sententia septima. Milites is the nominative subject because coacti is the passive voice. Now, if you took sententia sexta and made it passive, the boys will be ordered to run. The boys becomes the subject, pueri, correre, iube, buntur, will be ordered to run. Then correre would no longer be an objective infinitive, but a complementary infinitive, like ambulare is in sententia septima. Complementary infinitive. Optime, fun stuff. Octava, sententia octava. Potarasne epistulam remittere. So possum screams out for a complementary infinitive. We got a question, interrogative, so yes or no. Second person singular, imperfect, active, indicative. You were able. You used to be able to. Were you able? Yes or no? Could you? Were you able to remittere, to send back the letter? Were you able to send the letter back? Epistulam being the accusative direct object of the infinitive remittere, which is a complementary infinitive. Nona, sententia nona. Lavari paravarant. Lavari is the present passive infinitive of lava, lavare, lavi, lautus. To be washed. Lavare would be to wash. And then paravarant is the third plural pluperfect active indicative of para, parare, paravi, paratus, to prepare. So this is going to take a complementary infinitive. They had prepared what? To do something, to be washed. They had prepared to be washed. Then obviously something came up. So complementary infinitive. And decima, sententia decima. Milites iter facere iubentur. So iter facere with a form of eubeo, like sententia sexta and septima, We have eubeo, once again, but notice it's no longer active like it is in sexta, but in septima, passive. Eubentor is passive. The soldiers, the subject, passive. Future, third plural future, passive, indicative. Remember, if the verb is, under most circumstances, if the verb is passive voice, you cannot have an accusative direct object. So the soldiers will be ordered to iterfacere, complementary infinitive, to make a journey, to march, to travel. Now, if we made this verb active voice and said something like, the imperator ordered the soldiers to march, then we would have the imperator ordered the milite, subject accusative, to do the iterfacere objective infinitive. Then the active voice verb would be jussit. Optime, very well done. Make sure you review subjective infinitives, which we didn't have any in this exercise, objective infinitives, and complementary infinitives. You can also go back to chapter 32 and review the lessons there.